Good morning, everyone. So my name's David Adams from the Board of Trustees, and before we get started with our service, just a save the date notice and an invitation. The save the date notice is to mark your calendars for Saturday, August 26th, here in the sanctuary of the Monte Vista UU congregation, and also probably on the patio. We're going to honor and celebrate our beloved Ellen Livingston and her 90th birthday. So we're planning food and fun, and so there will be more details forthcoming soon, all right? And the invitation is just to join us for coffee and conversation on the patio after the service. Thank you. 4 o'clock, yeah, 4 o'clock, 4 to 8, but more details to follow.
Also, it looks like Friday, right? 28th is Friday. We got cups. Good morning, everybody. I'm Donald Mohr. I'm filling in for Catherine, who she came down with COVID. This is a stark reminder we should probably all be masked right now. It's still out there. I talked to her this morning. She's headachy. She's feeling okay-ish, you know, but let's all send some positive vibes that she has a quick recovery from this. So let's sound our bowl. We sound the bowl 3 times. Once for those who came before, the Tongva and the other native peoples who were the original stewards of this land and called it home long ago. We also honor our ancestors and the founding members of this congregation who imagined and formed it over 70 years ago. Once for those of us here and now, for our members and friends, our visitors, staff, and extended UU family who hold, care, and grow this beloved community we know as our own. And once for those who will come, for all those who find belonging with us and call MVUUC their spiritual home in the days ahead. And now for our opening words. You have your gray hymnal, it's 419 in there. Look to this day. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty are but experiences of time. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. And today, well lived, makes yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. Now, if you will rise as you are willing and able for our opening song, it's number 149. Lift every voice and sing.
Rejoicing
Now's when we speak our covenant together. This is adapted from Affirmations by L. Griswold Williams and J. E. Abernathy. Cool. We affirm that love is the greatest purpose of this congregation. The search for truth is our constant star, and service is our prayer. We pledge our hearts, minds, and hands to challenge injustice with courage, to find hope in times of fear, and to live out our Unitarian Universalist values every day as a beloved community. Thus do we covenant with each other and with all that is sacred in life. All right, and let's rise as we're willing and able and sing our favorite, Spirit of Life. It's 1, 2, 3 in the gray hymnal. It's also the very back page. All right. Now it is the time for our wisdom tale, our story for all ages. What? What are we pointing at? Oh, did we not light our chalice? I'm sorry, y'all. I'm out of order. All right. You want to come light the chalice then, since you pointed it out? That's right. Nope. Somebody's here to help. All right. As we light this, life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and mysteries of this great gift. All right. You're right. I was wrong.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Have kids, they said. It'll be fun. So for our story for all ages, Jaryus has a video queued up for us, so we're going to have a look. This is How to Live Forever by Colin Thompson. It's a really great story. So now this is the point where we sing our children to the classroom with Reeves' Children's Benediction. Come get the chalice, come on. All right, so now I want to put this to, one of our core principles is the use of the democratic process in our community, right? So we have to have some time with our treasurer here this morning. Do we want to do this before the offertory or after the offertory? So let's raise our hands for before, and let's raise our hands for after. All right, the befores have it. Come on up. That's...
Good morning. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the board treasurer, Carissa Mohr, and the worship committee has decided that every month I am going to get up here and talk about the state of our finances. So, if nothing else, by the end of my term, you guys will understand the fiscal oversight dashboard. So. Okay. So, this is what we call the dashboard. Basically, it is a summary of the financial documents that Tracy, our bookkeeper, gives me every month. The first section, well, let's start with across the top. So, we have our categories. Well, that makes it a little hard to read, Don. There we go. So across the top, we've got the month, we've got the year-to-date, we've got the year-to-date budgeted, so that's what we projected, and then we've got year-to-date for the last 3 years, so we can compare. So then we've got our total revenue, our total expenses, and then either our surplus or our deficit. So if we start with our trend analysis section, we can see that this month we actually had a surplus of over $4,000, so yay. We had for the year, because this is through the end of June, so the end of the fiscal year, we did have a deficit which we forecast, but it was much, much less than we forecast. So yay. We also ended up having more revenue than we thought we were going to. So that's cool, right? Okay. So then let's move down to the next section, the pledges and the plate. So the thing that concerns me on this section is that while our plate was much higher year to date than we thought it would be, our pledges were not. We're about 18,000 short on the pledges. And yeah. So if you still have outstanding pledges for the last year, please get those submitted. Because we did not come close to what we thought we were going to get. And this is just what we budgeted. This is not what our actual total was in terms of pledges for the last fiscal year. That was much higher. So, please, if you have outstanding pledges for last year, please get those turned in. Okay. Then let's go down to the bottom section, because I do not want to take too long on this. Now we go to the liquid assets, the current liquid assets, the current liabilities, and then the ratio between the two. Now, our current assets are just money. Like, this is not counting any fixed assets like the building, the land, any of that. It's just what we have in the bank, what's in the different accounts. The liabilities tend to be things like justice, chow, the different groups that people donate to, and the money is supposed to be designated for that, so that they're considered liabilities. Okay, now our current ratio is just under 3 to 1, which isn't bad. It's better than last year. My concern is that of the liquid assets, about 96,000 of that is the endowment fund. And we would rather like, that's the emergency fund. We would rather not touch that if we don't have to. So you subtract the 96,000, and that does not leave us with a lot in the bank. So overall, we did better than we thought we would for the year, but there's still points of concern. So I'm going to be meeting with Tracy tomorrow to see if maybe there was a clerical error. I'm not counting on it, but yeah, so that's where we're at. I'll see you next month.
All right, so with that being said, we give and accept these gifts to the community. So let's go ahead and do our offertory. All right. Now it's time for my favorite part of the service, where we share our joys and concerns. Katie, you wanna start it off? Kay came up. She actually talked to Catherine. Catherine sent this over. I'm glad you're up here reading. Kay Perlman, everybody.
I'd asked if I could present this myself since it was so long. Actually, I wasn't sure if I even wanted to share these things with the congregation, but given the topic of this week's sermon, I thought it would be very appropriate, and it'd also give me a chance to get some things off my chest, too. I have 3 sorrows and 1 joy. I'll start with the joy just to get us happy. Okay. Anyway, my joy is that after just over a year of being unemployed, my daughter Karen has been offered a position at the Claremont Library. And so, unfortunately, though, she has to go through a lot of red tape before she can start working, so we're not sure how soon that will be, but at least she'll have a job, and I'm very happy about that. And of course, she is, too. The sorrows are that within the last 2 weeks, I've lost 3 souls that have been very important to me. 2 human and 1 canine. Excuse me. Although all 3 of their deaths were not unexpected, but in most cases were considered to be a blessing, considering how long they'd been ill and how rapidly deteriorating the quality of life they all had. On July 8th, right on the cusp of a memorial service for the wife of a cousin, we lost another cousin who was the first one in my generation to die. So that hit pretty hard, too. He was 75, and he had a very long battle with Lewy body dementia. Is anybody familiar with that? Yes, it's a terrible, terrible disease. As his brother and his only survivor, really, put it, he was getting pretty close to being permanently confined to a wheelchair, and along with his increasing inability to communicate with others and loss of muscle control, it, meaning life, would have been a dreadful prison. Then, on July 19th, last Wednesday, I lost a close friend who was almost 84, and I'd met this person back in 1969 when I first moved to this area and started working at the Ontario City Library. Although she moved to Washington about 45 years ago, we remained good friends and spent many summer vacations and other holidays together, and her son was like a big brother to my 2 daughters when they were growing up. She was diagnosed with Parkinson's about 7 or 8 years ago and had been living in a group nursing home for nearly 5 years, and during that time had been confined to a wheelchair and had to be hand-fed for all that time. And for the last year or so, she was completely bedridden, and dementia had taken over her quick wit and once brilliant mind. Also this week, we had to put my daughter's nearly 17-year-old pug Otis to sleep after he suffered a stroke the previous afternoon. which was last Sunday. Up to that time, he was still very alert and had a voracious appetite, and although he had some mobility issues, he did amazingly well for his age until the stroke robbed him of his ability to stand, walk, or even eat on his own. And as difficult for us as this has been for the survivors of these loved ones, it has been very difficult, yes, definitely, but also a blessing that they are now released from the prison that their bodies had become.
Okay, I thought that was really well written. Thank you. It always seems to come in threes, doesn't it? I had a sorrow. June was the hottest month on record on planet Earth. It turns out the tipping point was before now. And now, instead of just reducing our emissions, we're going to have to actively pull carbon out of the atmosphere to get this back under control. It's going to take a tremendous lifestyle change of everybody. We're all going to have to reduce our energy consumption and our emissions immediately. It got to 135 degrees this week in Death Valley, highest temperature ever recorded on planet Earth. 55 degrees Celsius. So I'm sorry I can't bring good news on that front. And I lost a friend I went to high school with this week. We were in choir together. So cool. Anybody else? Anything on the chat, Jay? I do have one joy. I have my instrument that I commissioned that should ship on Monday. That should come in next week. So my hand is very excited for something a little easier to play. All right. So at this point in our service, we have our pastoral prayer and meditation. And Catherine wrote this out for me, so if you could just imagine her reading it, I'm sure she would much rather be up here reading it herself. But so let's close our eyes, get comfortable in our seats, and relax into a time of quiet meditation and contemplation. We breathe a few nice, deep breaths together. Quiet our minds, breathing slowly in and out, in and out. We feel our shoulders relax, our hearts open. We rejoice in the joys expressed here today, and we send our loving thoughts to those expressed concerns and grief. And to all those we know are hurting, but who have not spoken up, we send our loving thoughts inwards to ourselves and then outwards to the world. Let us breathe together in gratitude for life, in gratitude for this community, which offers support and love, in gratitude for this moment in time to be with one another. Blessed be. And then today's reading is A Summer Day by Mary Oliver. I don't think Jay's got it. It's all right. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down into the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last, and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Now Jill's gonna come up and sing a special song, which is Never, Never Land. Now we're going to bring up our fearless leader, President of the Board, David Adams.
Oh dear, fearless leader. Hello again. Well, as you can tell from my title and from the songs and the video, by the way, that children's tale was selected by Catherine, and it fits so well with some of the things that I want to talk about that I told her, boy, we really need to use that. I'm sorry that she can't be here today, but we hope that she feels better soon. All right, well, so the subject of aging has been on my mind lately, and a brief story will serve to explain or illustrate. So recently I attended a gathering a few months ago at Pilgrim Place, where Janie and I live, comprised of a number of college students. So Pilgrim Place gives a scholarship, and we had a bunch of kids and their families there, kids. So I mingled with the crowd, and eventually I landed in a discussion with a small group, including a student who had just recently celebrated her 21st birthday. So the discussion turned to birthdays, and I said something dumb, like, to be young again, or something like that. And then I let it slip that I was going to turn 70 this year. And the birthday student was silent for a few moments, as if looking me over. Really? She said. No, you can't be that old. I mean, what am I supposed to say, right? So after checking my pulse to make sure that I wasn't half dead already, I assured her that yes, it was true, and then quickly steered the conversation to something else. Maybe I didn't look as wrinkled and gray as her idea of what a 70-year-old should look like, or perhaps she was reflecting deeper attitudes prevalent in our society. It isn't news to be told that we live in a youth culture, saturated with images of power and vigor, beauty and agility. As a result, those of us who are older are coached on how to trim our fat, smooth our wrinkles, whiten our teeth, quicken our step, and stop hair loss, which in my case is not working. Round the clock, we're shown how to be stronger, look better, live faster. If we're tired or forgetful, we're admonished to seek professional help or take a pill. Aging is altogether a bad thing, says our culture. The symptoms and signs of growing old are first marginalized and then medicalized into problems to be treated and corrected. People want desperately to reject the realities of aging, as the wonderful children's tale that we listened to earlier reveals. But of course, not every society has been in denial about the thought of growing old. Well, true confessions, I was a complete nerd as a kid and as an adolescent, and I'm really still a nerd. I mean, that hasn't changed. Living in a world of imagination and books, as in that tale. At one point, I became enthralled with the history of the ancient world, especially the great civilizations of Egypt and Greece and Rome. And just like Peter in the story, I loved the idea of finding a book of archaic knowledge that would impart to me some profound wisdom. I don't remember many details of that time long ago because I'm so old, but I do have a very clear memory. It's funny how memory works. I have a very clear memory of driving my mother to the grocery store. It was evening. She couldn't drive, so once I got my learner's permit, I could drive her to the store. While Mom shopped for lettuce and Wonder Bread, I waited in the car reading an essay by the Roman philosopher Cicero called On Age, on old age, actually. De Senectute in the Latin, if you want to read in the Loeb edition. I'm not sure what I got out of it at age 16, but now that I'm almost 70, I find its insights valuable. Rereading that essay again recently, I remembered why I liked it. In forthright prose, Cicero refuses to gripe and moan about growing old. Nor does he sugarcoat his thoughts with an appeal to a heaven of golden streets. For him, aging is an opportunity for inner exploration, for nurturance of memories, a time to adapt oneself to mellowing powers, to cultivate an attitude of acceptance and tranquility of mind. In a typical passage, he writes, so this is a quote from Cicero, "Hours and days and months and years go by. The past returns no more. And what is to be, we cannot know. But whatever the time given to us in which to live, we should therefore be content." Well, was Cicero right? Is there anything good to be said about growing old? Well, we might find out by reflecting on the fact that in the not too distant future, we might not have to age at all. So some of you know that before I retired, I taught philosophy for decades, and I did research in the field of biomedical ethics. We have another ethicist in the audience here who can correct me if I say stupid things. One of the most fascinating bioethical debates today concerns the use of emerging biotechnologies for the purpose of so-called human enhancement. Human enhancement proposes to deliver the power to do what no species on Earth has ever been able to do: control and accelerate our own evolution, genetically engineering ourselves to be taller, stronger, faster, smarter, and most tantalizing of all, allowing each of us to live much, much longer. Age retardation is the name given to research aimed at dramatic extension of the human lifespan. These researchers, and they have a technical name, biogerontologists, believe that soon we will be able to slow or even halt the process of aging. Now, what they're discussing is not just improvements in average life expectancy, right? That, of course, has improved significantly in the last 150 years or so. Average life expectancy, I looked this up, in North America in 1900 was 48. Today it's closer to 80. The goal of these new researchers, however, is radical life extension. Combining new techniques like gene editing with other biomedical advancements, they hope to stop the destruction of neurons, prevent muscle deterioration and memory loss, grow entire replacement organs in laboratories. Of course, we can already replace broken hips, knees, elbows, ankles, and transplant just about all the major internal organs, as well as hands, fingers, and even whole faces. And we're learning how to wire digital implants into our brains and nervous systems. With augmented genes and a sufficient supply of synthesized spare parts, aging could become a thing of the past. Now, I know all this sounds like far-off sci-fi, but proponents of these developments point to the exponential rate at which our technological capabilities have increased and are continuing to increase. So, I mean, the way I try to think about it is in this way. When my grandmother was born in the hinterlands of Saskatchewan in 1890, her family had, of course, no computers, radios, or TVs. They didn't have a phone. They didn't have an incandescent light bulb. Most hospitals had no electricity. Antibiotics, open heart surgery, transplants, dialysis, respirators, defibrillators, not one of those things existed. The rate of biomedical progress has been tremendous. With that perspective in mind, the estimates I'm about to share may not seem so crazy. The predictions vary, but some researchers believe that the first human being to live to be 150 is alive somewhere on Earth today as a baby. The current record is 122. Modest estimates say that assuming an escalating rate of scientific progress for the next 150 years, that number could more than double, so that at least some people born in the second half of the next century. So, Jeannie and I have grandchildren, so our grandchildren's great-great-grandchildren could live for upwards of 300 years. They're not kidding, these researchers. Beyond that, who knows? It might actually happen within half a dozen generations that people could measure their lives not with the passing of decades, but of centuries. Would this be a good thing? Is belief in radical life extension a miracle or another form of destructive denial, kind of an illusion, in a way that Peter in the story sort of discovers at the end? Well, there are those who point out that to live much longer is not necessarily to live better. Knowing that we might live for hundreds and hundreds of years could diminish our motivation to achieve goals and accomplish tasks, so that we would become indolent procrastinators. Why do I have to clean up the garage, work out at the gym, or go on a diet? After all, I can do those things next century. And there are other concerns. Will extreme longevity stretch out every phase of our lives? If so, what we now call teenage could last for 50 years. That doesn't sound so great. And what if our reproductive years were radically lengthened? How would we cope with the impact on the Earth's resources of a dramatic rise in birth rates? I say we, though it's certain that the biomedical tools needed for radical life extension will be available only to the few most wealthy individuals and communities on Earth. Inequities in life expectancy and access to medicine exist today, of course. Radical life extension seems guaranteed to magnify those disparities, perhaps even leading to the formation of castes. On the one hand, enhanced people enjoying centuries of productivity and fun. On the other, the unfortunate remainder, infirm and short-lived, relatively speaking, due to the lack of even those medical resources available to most of us in this room right now. But won't age retardation be great for those of us who can get it? Just think of it. 284 years of commuting on the 10 freeway. 600 visits to the dentist office. Decades wasted in line at the DMV. Well, here I think the issue is not so much living for centuries as what kind of life would be lived, right? Later on in his essay, Cicero writes, so this is another passage, "Life's race course is fixed. Nature has only a single path, and that path is run by us but once. And to each stage of our lives has been allotted its own appropriate quality, so that the weakness of childhood, the impetuosity of youth, the seriousness of middle age, the maturity of old age, each bears some of nature's fruit, which must be harvested in its own season." Well, I think there's wisdom there. As the Children's Tale eloquently observes, in living for centuries, we might lose sight of the fact that only through aging can we develop an awareness of the meaningfulness of time's passage, appreciating the milestones in our lives because they coincide with the inevitable decline of some abilities while enabling others to come to fruition. Cicero talks in his essay about how much he enjoys playing with his grandchildren. What is more enjoyable, he says, than an old age surrounded by the enthusiasms of youth? Well, here again, I think his words are suggestive. Many of our most important relationships are structured by age. Think about mothers and their children, or lovers and their partners. We hope to move through life together with those who are most special to us. But suppose you're one of the few people engineered for a life of centuries, yet you fall in love with someone who has only a standard lifespan. Are you doomed to suffer successive losses of nearly everyone close to you? Isolated and alienated like the ancient child, right? Except for those few who, like you, can afford to be enhanced. As the ancient child says in the story, to live forever is not really to live at all. One last brief passage from Cicero. Just as apples, when they are green, are with difficulty plucked from the tree, but when ripe and mellow fall of themselves, so with the young, death comes as a result of force, while with the old, it's the result of ripeness. So I'm not really getting old, I'm just getting ripe. I'm not sure whether that's good or not. How much more painful would accidental death be if a child who dies at 15 was expected to live to 300? Indeed, with radically extended lives, we might come to fear death even more than we do now, since it would strike less often, at least from natural causes. Defenders of radical life extension will doubtless dismiss my concerns as sour grapes, the complaints of a 21st century 70-year-old man with fading hair, for whom extreme longevity will come too late. I, on the other hand, prefer to think that Cicero was onto something. So do we all have to grow old? Well, yes, for now. But perhaps if Cicero was right, we shouldn't be too quick to sign up for radical life extension. Maybe growing old doesn't have to be so bad after all. Thank you.
Now it's time for our closing song, which is number 318 in your gray hymnal, We Would Be One. Come up and extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the truth of light, the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And our benediction comes out of our gray hymnal as well, number 700. For all who see God, may God go with you. For all who embrace life, may life return your affection. For all who seek a right path, may a way be found, and the courage to take it step by step.